Hello to the chicos and the chicas. Today we have got a really tough decision to make. In fact, I have made a decision, but now I'm going to give you the reason for what we are going to do today. The ladies round in the candidates round 6 has seen an absolute slugfest. 4 decisive games, as you can see on the screen. Salimova lost to Goryachkina. Tan Zhongyi beat Anna Muzichuk. Conneru lost to Lei Tingjae, and Vaishali lost to Lano. And also in the men's section we saw 2 decisive games. Vidit defeated Firuzia and Pragnananda defeated Abbasov. So I had a really tough call as to what to do and what to analyze, and eventually I made the very arbitrary decision that many of you will probably find a little bit strange. And that decision was that I'm only going to focus on one game in my recap today, only out of the 6 decisive games. And it is going to now be dealing with one of the ladies' games, as you can already see on the screen. It is going to be the encounter between Tan Zhongyi and Muzichuk Anna. Now, I don't know if I pronounce her name correctly, but I would like to credit myself. I did a bit of a YouTube search, and I watched about 10 minutes of YouTube videos about how to pronounce the name, which I thought was Zhongyi, but apparently it's Zhongyi. At this point, I'm going to just go like, just bear with me. I tried my best. The reason why I picked this game was because the Vidit Firuzia game, which probably had the largest attention, in my opinion, represented the least amount of value in terms of there was a super ugly blunder made by Firuzia, after which Vidit just mopped up. The Pragnananda game, although beautiful, was extremely technical, and yet another very long Abbasov loss. I felt like I didn't want to repeat myself there. And amongst the ladies' decisive games, this one was so cool and eventful that I thought I could do an entire video just about the one game. And I think that you guys are going to, in the end, agree with me that this was a really good call. So let's dive right into it. It starts out as a very shy and timid business with the Collie system played by Tan Zhongyi. And we are going to just go through the motions here as everyone is putting pieces on logical squares until we hit this point. And similar scenarios very often occur in my students' game, and this is usually where the first strange decisions begin to kick in with black, because we have ticked all the boxes in terms of developing our pieces. Castle seems very logical, and in fact, according to the engine, is best. And then after f4, perhaps this is a better position to say that this is where strange decisions start to seep in into our thinking and into our game. And interestingly enough, that is exactly what happened here to Anna Muzichuk, who started trading here in a way that I really dislike. So what happened here was that she took on d4, releasing tension, by the way, and I'm giving up a bit of center just to blow my own trumpet here about chess principles, reloaded center. Then another trade on e5, further releasing tension, and then dropping back to d7. Now, before we go on to what that results in, I would like to highlight the fact that after, let's say, castles f4, in my opinion, in such scenarios, the best way to play is, and that's almost like a principle that applies to any position really of similar structure, is to maintain all tension instead of releasing any, and in fact try to add a little bit more. So if I'm black here, a5, with the idea of a cheeky a4 positional sack, is the way that I really like to play such positions, because it keeps white busy. It keeps white guessing about where we might engage, and all that energy and mental thought process is going to result in them being able to spend less time on figuring out how to conduct the kingside attack, which they are definitely gearing up for. And so the point, by the way, of the pawn sack is that if they take, it creates a break in the pawn chain. And not only could I find a very simple target, but there is a far better, more reason for all of this, and that is this piece. Win with c4. Hello? And all of a sudden, not that I'm a big fan of post hoc rationalization, but you see how important it was not to release the tension. Turns out that our c5 pawn is an incredible asset in this whole story. And if white cannot capture, then all of a sudden this game is about king-queen-side center business, not about their king-side attack, which they love to conduct here, whether it be g4, g5, or rook f3, rook h3. That's, you know, now off the cards. White needs to pay attention to what's going on the queen side. So, now, let's put this in very strong contrast to what happened in the game. Takes, once again, objectively not bad, but on a principle level, I very strongly disapprove. I very strongly disapprove of this too. And now after queen g4, g6, b4, x-clam, I really want you guys to observe what positional changes took place here. And the best way to look at it in this particular case is to look at black's piece mobility. Right? So what do we have? We have a bishop on e7. The best piece by far in black's camps, covers a lot of dark squares. It's operational on both diagonals, all fine. However, the rest, knight on d7, has no legal moves whatsoever. I mean, knight f8, knight b8 doesn't count. So, essentially, dead piece. And the bishop on b7 has become also a pretty dead piece. By the way, please note that we are in a French structure where black traditionally wants to break the center with c5, but unfortunately, because we already cashed in on that one, that is out. The other one is f6, virtually unplayable. And so what we have here is an absolutely horrid French where white has got a myriad of useful moves still to play for, and black is sitting on a completely immobilized, passive, very, very badly developed army. And that was fundamentally a direct result of breaking my favorite principles of releasing tension too soon and also giving up center. So I don't want to sound like I'm schooling a grandmaster who is way above my pay grade, but mistakes are mistakes. And, you know, it doesn't matter whether your rating is, you know, 1900 or 2700. If you fall into these mistakes, the results will be the same in terms of what positions occur. And so now, black is really, really on the back foot. b4, beautiful play by Tan Zhongyi. a5, black is now trying to find some counterplay on the queen side. The right way to play, by the way. But objectively, we are very badly off here with black. Knight f3, marvelous castles, rook e1, bringing all the boys to the party. The engine here prefers an extremely weird rook b1, trying to, I guess, get off of the a file. And there are a few tactical reasons for why rook b1 is preferred, which I don't want to just quite reveal yet. Rook e1 was played, and this wasn't as good as rook b1 would have been. And this is probably, even though if you have seen the game and you saw the tactical fireworks that are about to come, you will be surprised when I tell you, I find the most instructive position in this entire game to be this one right in front of us. And the reason for this is because it links beautifully to a video that I have made about a fortnight ago, a little bit more, where I talk about trends. And I will just give you here a very brief summary. I very highly recommend you to check out that video. The concept that I'm talking about there is that sometimes instead of calculating a position and playing a position from move to move to move, it's a very good habit to do to just lean back in your chair and take a generic look at the position and ask yourself what's going on. And if we ask that question when we are sitting behind the black pieces, then the very simple answer to, if you look at the last four moves of what's going on, then the only acceptable answer to that question would be, if we are realistic with ourselves behind the black pieces, is that we are getting absolutely slaughtered. That's what's happening. There is an absolutely beautiful kingside attack developing by white. All white pieces, barring none, are pointing to the kingside or located at the kingside. We have no meaningful ways to put up any resistance on that side of the board. So this is a rock solid, steady, downhill, straight down the gurgler kind of scenario for black. And the most important thing, other than identifying such trends in chess, is to then try to figure out a way to disrupt this trend. Now, usually the disruption of such trends requires very, very drastic intervention. It's usually a sacrifice, often two. Almost always it's material concession that we need to accept, that we have to do in order to alter the trend at least, but preferably change it altogether. And even if you change the direction of the game, it's already a huge win. And by direction, I mean that instead of white having a ripper of a kingside attack, which ultimately will lead to a checkmate, if we stir this to a down a pawn in an endgame, which seems holdable, that's already a huge turn of trends. And this position here offered black that exact move that would have allowed at least to change the character of the position. I will show it to you from black's perspective by the sensational pawn sack d4. I absolutely love this move, and once again I think that this is the most instructive moment in the entire game. What this move does is that it disrupts white's plans. All of a sudden, by putting the pawn on prey by 3 different pieces, by the way, hello, we have opened up the bishop's diagonal on b7 and turned this bishop to one of the best pieces on the board. We are hitting with the b4 pawn. And so all of a sudden, it seems like white needs to respond. Instead of casually just playing out an attack on the king side and attack, sack, mate, they have now stuff to worry about. We are keeping them busy. And amazingly, all 3 captures allow black at least a degree of wiggle room. So let's go one by one. Queen takes d4, we can take on f3, gf3, the pawn structure is wrecked. And now after queen c7, we have got a fair bit of pressure on e5, we have got a bit of a pressure down the c file, the b4 pawn needs attention, rook fd8 is coming, and most importantly, no imminent kingside attack in sight, and if they still insist, we might really go crazy and play f6. And all of a sudden, this position has completely turned a 180. Black is calling the shots. You take me bishop f6 and tada, I won the game. You don't take me, I take knight e5 and I'm better. White now needs to play best moves. Best and only moves to stay ahead. What a change. Now white is better, don't get me wrong, but the character of the position has changed drastically. And this is out of comfort zone. From a dominating attacking position to an exchange of punches, that's not what you want. Likewise, if knight takes d4, no problemo, we take b4. You take e6 and we go like, fine, no worries. You take b4. Now what happened here was, and this is by the way my favorite lines of all, is that we lost a pawn. And you could tell, oh, big deal, what happened here? Well, we just down a pawn. True. Look at my army. Mate threat is on, yeah? Remember when I told you about the piece activity here about black? And we discussed that can't move, useless, 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 yeah? Let's have a little bit of a comparison now. Best piece on the board, by far, no questions asked. Mate threat. Both of my rocks are on semi-open files, pressuring the opponent, and the knight fulfills very useful defending and attacking duties as well. Every single piece I own behind the black army is now functional, operational. I have additional threats. Happy days. I would trade several pawns, let alone one, for this change in a heartbeat. And that is just top quality chess there for you to observe about how to handle an oncoming attack like that. Finally, after d4, bishop d4, which is the worst out of all recaptures, we take f3, queen f3, bishop takes b4, rook, let's say, I don't even know what I analyzed here. Let's say rook b1, bishop c3, rook c3, and black is better. We traded off enough pieces that the kingside attack has completely vanished. e5 requires attention. The pin is awkward, the c2 pawn is awkward, queen c7 is an easy move to play. Black is ahead. That's high quality dynamic chess understanding for you folks in a nutshell. Now, was missed by Muzichuk, who played rook a1. And the price to be paid is that now white's attack is rolling in like crazy. Rook a4, h5, very nice. Rook takes b4. And by the way, h5 is a piece sacrifice. Just so that we're clear on that. Because after rook b4, white's best by far is knight d4, hanging the b2 bishop. Now, the bishop, of course, is not capturable. Because rook takes b2 is met by h takes g6. And if we take back, bishop takes g6, leads to an absolutely devastating attack. The main concept is pretty simple. Takes, queen takes, king h8, knight e6 is a double attack on queen and checkmate. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. I tried to make something work like bishop h4 with this very cheeky idea that if I pull the bishop back, then queen g5 is a very rude awakening for white, but going for the double check is one of the many ways to prove this whole sacrificial idea correct, chucking in a second piece. But now after check, 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 king h8 and e6, the cooperation in the white army is so brutally strong that black has no chance of survival. If knight c5, then a surprising mating pattern kicks in with rook e5, and tada! All of a sudden, black is helpless against the mate. Best is to beg for a queen trade. But after ed7, it's a very hilarious case of black is being a piece up, excuse me. But two of those pieces, the rook and the bishop on b7, are completely out of play. And they don't even have a chance to return on time. And so, yeah, white is going to convert here with ease. No problemo. So, the b2 bishop is immune to capture. And what that means is that white's attack marches on with elementary power. And so, a little bit of a panic reaction by Muzichuk. But at the same time, I quite like this. Trying to change again a little bit things around the king side. Nonetheless, white's attack is still absolutely coming in with, yeah, brutal force. f4, perfect move. Queen c8. The reason why she didn't go to c7 is because on occasion, on an e6 sack, you can utilize the queen being on c8. Bishop c2, knight c5. And we have reached the first, and perhaps one of the hardest decisions in the game for white. And Tan Zhongyi, he went wrong, by the way, by playing f5, testament to how hard that decision was. Now, the reason why she took it, I think, was because she saw takes, and this surprisingly cheeky queen c2 move is very annoying. It is very, very, very annoying. It puts the queen on prey. But we can't take it because of rook takes g4 and our attack is gone and all of our dreams too. The queen attacks the bishop and all of a sudden there is a degree of discomfort, like the harmony amongst our pieces has been disrupted and it doesn't feel right. However, in this position, white has an absolutely crazy move that actually turns this whole, I disrupted your position kind of feel in a 180. And for any of you watching there who always wonders when grandmasters label a move as a computer move and what does it mean and how can we say such things, I'm going to show you now one and I will explain it. So the best and only move here for white to retain a huge advantage is the absolutely shocking rook a1. Now, that is in my book the epitome of a engine move, and the reason why it's so is because it's extremely counterintuitive, bordering the illogical in terms of understanding what's going on the position, and yet it works perfectly well because the third feature of what usually makes a computer move, because despite violating 7,000 rules or concepts or principles, tactically it's justifiable, and in fact the tactical justifications prove it correct. So when you have a fully functional and developed army, to send the rook back where it came from, to challenge a lateral pin, it's like, hello, what is going on here? And yeah, queen takes b2, rook takes a4, white wins. Tactical justification number 1. Rook takes rook, knight takes c2. No more pin, white wins. Tactical justification number 2. And all of a sudden, and that's the third one, which is probably the hardest one to explain. All of a sudden from, oh, I don't know what to do with white now, we went to actually, uh-oh, I don't know what to do with black. Like, there is just no moves left. Yeah, we are sitting in this pin. I have to maintain it so the rook can't go anywhere. I need the queen here to attack the bishop, but I can't take it because rook is hanging, and g6 is pending. So I tried here bishop c5 because that seemed to me to be the most human and logical move to add a bit of fire to this pin. Does absolutely nothing. g6, and yeah, there's just absolutely nothing black can do against the incoming gf double check followed by this mate pattern. You take, you take, I check you, and after king h8, yeah, I can just take this back, and after queen c d3, queen f4, I think it's all over red rover. Actually, no, queen f4 is met by queen f5, so probably I need to come back to f1, and then, yeah, black is falling apart completely. Absolutely insane stuff. And to see a move like rook a1 in this position is just next level. And when I say in this position, I mean that she needed to see rook a1 when she calculated her move now. Because all of that was a direct consequence of fg. So instead she opted for f5, which is also logical, but nowhere near as effective in terms of the attack, because now black had the extremely cheeky h6. And although the engine tells you that this is winning for white too by about +2, this I found quite intriguing. So the way I would play this with white is f6, bishop d8, and bishop c1 with the idea of Matutsky. However, and this is again a trend changer, here comes rook takes d4, the ultimate weapon of the defender and the side that wants to change trends, the exchange sacrifice, which eliminates a very valuable attacker, removes the queen from the attack, and now comes the final touch, the body block. I can no longer swing back to the king side. And don't get me wrong, this is completely winning for white. We're still in the +2 department, but there is no longer a mate to talk about. Right? So black has dodged the biggest problem. The king is safer than it has ever been for the last 15 moves. And now white needs to find different means to convert this game, which, by the way, is likely to go toward the direction of an endgame, which, despite being an exchange down, is not a walk in the park. It's a win, but it's not a win like, oh, I sack on g5 and it's mate. We are playing another 3 hours of chess here before there will be a score recorded on the score sheet. Very, very different story. So, as luck would have it, Muzichuk missed h6, took on f5, and now we are back into absolute killer mode. Now, here comes again another very interesting twist, and this one I tried, but I could not justify by white. So what went down in the game was that Tan Zhongyi here played h6, and after bishop c8 he played e6, which is the right way to play in terms of what to do after bishop c8. What I'm very confused about is that I don't understand why she didn't play e6 here right away. And I'm not saying this because this is what the engine recommends, but if you look at what happened in the game, clearly she was aware of the idea because after bishop c8 she played it, so she must have considered it. And this is like, now we are entering the just about checkmate territory. I tried to see what she may have overlooked here, but I couldn't find it for the life of me, because after f6, there is a sensational and super easy attack, which, by the way, is quite similar to what she tried to make work. But in this concept and in this context, The pawn on h5 is actually better placed than on h6. For starters, after here we have mate. But equally importantly, now after queen g6, I have got a more versatile, a broader range of threats here. Because with h6 pawn in, the only threat I have is queen mate, which rook g8 can dodge. Now they can't do that because it's mate. And so I can go about this queen checkmate threat in a far more subtle way. Or maybe subtle is not the best word for it, but in a more sophisticated way, which is knight f5. Which introduces two more attackers, or three, or however many you want to call it. The bishop, the knight, well, let's call it two. And now we have got all kinds of threats pending, and it's super difficult to stop. I tried knight e4, just to add a bit of a defender to the tender squares, but of course, sack, knight f5, and now it's carnage. Black can defend temporarily the mate on the 7th rank by the queen move, but now comes bishop takes f6, and it is just gonna be mate. Unstoppable. So, yeah, e6 here would have been absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. And if they take, I mean, this is the ultimate triumph of the bishops on the long diagonal, so that's entirely out of the question. And yeah, there's not a lot else to discuss there. So this h6 move, played in 5 minutes, by the way, when she had 34 on the clock. It's a very odd call. But anyway, h6. Bishop c8, e6. Back on the correct path. f6. And check. So now we are basically conducting an inferior version of the previous attack, because now the pawn is on h6. And it narrows a little bit down what we can do. For example, here queen g6 is almost losing to rook g8. Quite crazy stuff. So here white needed to play with caution and precision, and she did. Knight c6, best move. Queen e8. Queen takes g5. Marvelous, building up the threats. Like, this is just looking like mwah, perfection. And here comes a very, very strange call. Once again, plenty of time on the clock. Opponent is on the ropes. Opponent has 2 minutes. And admittedly, the first move I would look at here for white is exactly what Tan Zhongyi did. But it doesn't work. She played rook f6, leaving the queen on prey, introducing a double check idea. But unfortunately, this allows the trade of the queens in a position where our attack is just raging. And frankly, I don't understand why we do this when we have bishop takes f6 check, bishop takes. Queen h7 doesn't really make a difference in the sense that after queen check, queen takes, now the trade yields an extra piece and another. Right? So now material is level in terms of pieces. I'm up a pawn or 2 or 3 depending on how many I'm going to munch. But most importantly, there are 2 hanging pieces. This is literal resignation right here. End of story. And so queen g6 she didn't really have to worry about. So the only thing that is left is bishop takes, queen takes, king here. And there are a myriad winning moves here. I really didn't want to go into trading queens here, but it wins by force because this pawn is just muscling itself through. But the very simple and plain knight a7, similar to the game by the way, would have done it. Like, it just hangs everything. Rook, bishop, queen f7 is incoming. There is just nothing, absolutely nothing black can do here against a complete collapse. I mean, the engine's best line, and this tells you the whole story, is knight e6, knight takes g8, and rook a7, not even taking the knight. I mean, if this is black's best, we know that we are doing great, right? By the way, queen takes allows a check here, followed by various rook lifts, rook checks. I mean, this is just as dead as it can get. I mean, after rook f6, black's best is queen g6, and I don't want to analyze that. So yeah, very, very weird one, but it just goes to show how badly the pressure can get to you when you are winning. Like, white has everything we can ask for. Winning position, we have been dominating for the last 10 moves. We are up on the clock 18 minutes, and our opponent is 2 minutes away from flagging. Like, we have the full package, and still the nerves, the psychology, perhaps also the desire to please the crowd, got to the Chinese GM, and now we are in trouble. There is actually no win here. It's quite crazy. She played the correct move, in my opinion, in terms of trying to give ourselves the greatest chance for a win. 97. And admittedly, there's an abundance of threats on the board now. And the constant checkmate threats really need to really make Black's life miserable, considering the time situation. But that being said, the most logical move for Black here appears to be to eliminate the pawn on e6. And bishop takes e6 seems to do the job. And now if rook takes, knight takes, and queen f5 check, then rook g6, and Black has defended everything. And simply turns out that we don't have a mate and we sacrifice too much material. So this is not working. Interesting to note though that bishop e6 is only, knight e6 loses to knight g8, queen g8, and queen e7 check. And again the king gets too exposed. And after king here, bishop c1 check, king g6 and rook f1, the white pieces are now going to just decimate the king. There is not any defense to be found against the imminent rook check. And then, yeah, Carnage City. Also note that queen f6, queen h6 is a mate threat if the king goes back. So it's just not tenable. And then to add insult to injury, there are unguarded pieces all over the board. So for example, if I play queen g7 here to try to organized defense, check picks of the rook. Wow. So yeah, to be fair to Muzichuk, she only had one move. But that one move would have held, and quite handily too. And instead now comes the final collapse. She played rook e4, and now after take, knight takes g8. Beautiful move, by the way. Hello. Utilizing a marvelous geometry between king and queen. White goes on to win. To be fair, queen f5 check would have done the same, but knight g8 is definitely the prettier of the two. And after queen takes g8 comes the beautiful coup de grace, queen f7 check. And now after take, all of a sudden, the e6 pawn steps up and takes all the glory, and Black resigned. It's quite amazing that Black resigns on 38, and if we just go back as far as, what move are we on now, 34, a draw was within grasp and within reach. Actually, I need to show you the best line here because it's really kind of instructive. Bishop e6, knight g8, mate threat. Queen g8, check. Queen f7, rook takes e6, looking like we are absolutely killing it. Knight takes, loses the queen. If queen takes, rook comes with check. But it turns out that in the great excitement of going after that king and sack and trade, we just traded everything away, and we have not enough wood to win the game with. Dead even. It's just not enough material left on the board to do anything. Ouch. So yeah, an insanely entertaining battle between the two grandmasters. A remarkable attack, some absolutely insane defensive resources, some missed, and in the end, a beautiful finish by the Chinese GM. I really like this knight g8, queen f7 combo, ensuring a new queen emerging on f8, securing the W. So that was the recap of round 6 by me, ladies and gents. I do think I will have time for one more tomorrow, and unfortunately that's gonna be the last recap video I will make because I'm going to travel. And by the way, YouTube videos will be probably a little bit more scarce in the next 2.5 weeks. Apologies for that, but work is work. We'll come back stronger, but please make sure that you stay with me at least for the time being. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to sub, to like, to thank me, and I will be back with the next tomorrow. Thank you.